But that brings us to our final story about the Oscars, because that took place last night. And if there's a place where people are blissfully unaware of the world around them, it is in Hollywood. So Jimmy Kimmel once again starred as the host for the Oscars. And I won't say it was as bad as it could have been. It was actually amusing, not that funny in parts, but amusing enough to actually make him tolerable at times.
And thank you for encouraging people who were already at the movie theater to go to the movie theater.
But of course, I didn't watch it and nobody else in America did, so it didn't really matter. Just the clips that were available didn't look too awful, except there is one thing that we can come to expect from our Hollywood elites, and that is that they take the opportunity, wherever Ricky Gervais is not around, to reprimand people.
Know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and...
Now, when a bunch of spoiled, rotten millionaires and billionaires complain about how unfair the world is, yeah, it starts to get a little redundant and a little foolish, but it doesn't stop them. And it doesn't stop people like Jimmy Kimmel for calling for more diversity and more representation out there, as he said this. As for Cameron, Kimmel used the Avatar director's absence as a way to make like Natalie Portman at the 2018 Golden Globes and comment on the distinct lack of female nominees in the Best Director category. I mean, how does the Academy not nominate the guy who directed Avatar? What, do they think he is a woman? The host specifically referenced two high-profile female-directed films that were snubbed, Till and The Woman King, and encouraged audiences at home to seek them out. Too bad the Woman King herself, Viola Davis, wasn't in the audience. Considering her action hero transition, she could have joined Adonis Creed and Spider-Man in keeping the ceremony shenanigans free. So yeah, she could have also been the Woman King in this capacity. She could have enslaved a bunch of black people, women and children and men in the audience there that day, like the actual Woman King did in history. But of course, we don't want to show that part of history. The reason the Woman King was not in attendance and the reason Till was not represented is because none of these movies deserve to rise to the category of Best Director, which I would, by the way, argue that Avatar #2 didn't either. So just because a woman directed a movie and the movie happens to have some kind of message at the end of the day, doesn't mean that the message is actually good. Most people saw The Woman King for what it actually is, a silly, pandering attempt to try to celebrate womanhood by trying to make women men. Why can't you celebrate womanhood by actually celebrating what women actually are, which by and large isn't machete-wielding killers? No, at the end of the day, what we have to do is revise history, make it so that these people weren't slave traders, and make it so that these people are actually action heroes. But of course they're not. So that didn't stop others like Jamie Lee Curtis also from standing up and trying to ask for women representation after the Oscars. By the way, I will say this: her acceptance speech was mostly good, except for one part where she claimed she had two daughters. Just a little confused. But her acceptance speech was mostly good and mostly true.
I know it looks like I'm standing up here by myself, but I am not. I am hundreds of people.
If anybody got anywhere, it isn't because they got there by themselves. But after the fact, she had these words to say. Obviously, I would like to see a lot more women be nominated so that there's gender parity in all these areas, all the branches, and we're getting there, but we're not anywhere near there, she explained. And of course, the inclusivity, which then involves the bigger question, which is how do you include everyone when there are binary choices? That's very difficult. And as the mother of a trans daughter, I completely understand that. And yet, to degender the category also, I'm concerned will diminish the opportunity for more women, which is something that I also have been working hard to promote. So it's a complicated question, she continued. But I think the most important thing is inclusivity and more women, basically just effing more women anywhere, all the time, all at once. Oh boy, she's a riot, that one. So real quick, what is a woman exactly? Because if we can't answer that question, then we probably don't need to be talking about women winning Best Director. But let's just step back for a moment and let's hear her out. So Jamie Lee Curtis Jimmy Kimmel, they want us to believe that women in Hollywood are not getting a fair shake. Now, this is a place where liberals are such bleeding hearts and leftists are aplenty, where homeless people can defecate on the street just so they can feel better about themselves and feel heartwarmed that they are so accepting and so tolerant. So we're supposed to believe that a woman director comes in, brings in a great script, brings in a great cast, and that the studio and the producers say, you know what, you're a woman, we can't have that. So Hollywood is so eaten up with misogyny that they will not tolerate a woman director. That's what we're supposed to believe? No, point in fact, what's actually happening is what's happening in high school women's sports and high school women's bathrooms, is that we're allowing a group of people to invade those spaces all the time for the sake of being tolerant and for the sake of feeling compassionate. So if we see, unlike Jamie Lee Curtis seems to recognize, that there are whole categories to represent women. In fact, she won an award in the Best Supporting Actress role because we want to make sure that we affirm and acknowledge the contribution of women in the movie industry. Now, I understand it's not director, but still, those categories exist so that we can do exactly what her and Kimmel are calling for. So if we are already doing it, what are we really after? We're after this feeling, I think, that is totally undefined and will never truly be achieved. Maybe we're just after, at least they are, just after the applause of a woke studio audience that will applaud everything that they say. Now, it's just like the narcissist in Hollywood to get an Oscar and to still desire yet more applause. It's not enough that they got rewarded for their performance in a movie that nobody saw, but they want to make sure that they get applauded yet again. Here's a real crazy thought. How about, since we are representing women, since we are over the top in love with diversity, equity, and inclusion, how about we get serious about filmmaking and actually celebrate the stories that truly matter? See, if we do that, we might actually find ourselves slowly but surely creeping back toward biblical truths and biblical ideas and the Judeo-Christian ethic, a universal narrative that binds us all together. But Hollywood can't afford to do that. So instead, they try to chase after things that are already happening. Let me give you the illustration here. Did you know any of the movies that were up for Best Director or Best Picture? And did you see any of them? The movie that swept through the Oscars and actually won for Best Director was Everywhere All at Once, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which you didn't see and I didn't see because it barely made its money back at the box office. It cost $25 million to make at least, and then that's not with the marketing budget, which at least was more than that, double that, and it only made $70 million in America. I remember Oscars in the past where people actually watched the movies that were nominated for Best Director and Best Picture, and people actually cared about those movies. But because we're caring about all the wrong things and celebrating all the wrong things, we can't actually find ourselves creating actually good content that makes people want to celebrate anymore. Perhaps we need to move back to things that actually matter, a definition of truth, so that we can actually celebrate the things that should be celebrated in society rather than constantly whining about diversity. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need to step back, slow my roll down a little bit, and realize there was one movie that was recognized for the Best Picture category that people did go to watch, and that it actually did make its money back and hundreds of millions more on top of that. And it's a movie that actually showcases a man standing up for truth and sticking it to China and standing up for things that actually matter. And it's a movie that should have won the Academy Award for Best Picture. And that, of course, is Top Gun. But of course, it was robbed. Nonetheless, hopefully you watched it and enjoyed it. And hopefully you enjoyed today's show. If you did, I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And go with God. So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.